Hello, everyone. I am Solomon Lederer from Blockmatics, and we are back today. We're speaking with Kedar Iyer, who is in the EOS space, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of projects that he's working on. I'm really excited to have you on, Kedar, because we actually go back a while. We even co-wrote a book that came out last year, or was it last? Yeah. So we co-wrote 2 years now. I know, man, time is fun. Yeah, but this is a blockchain, a practical guide to developing business, law, and technology solutions. So we both contributed chapters to that book. And we've had some other overlap in the crypto space as well. So yeah, we do know each other for a few years already. So anyway, but you've also written a book on Ethereum. Can I even say that? Yeah. So you've written, it's clear. Or the 2 books now, I think, on Ethereum. But you've about a year ago or more, you've pivoted to the EOS space, and I'd like to talk to you about Everipedia, which is a big project, and then a couple of the other projects that you're working on. But anyway, before we start, do you want to give any other kind of intro or background and how you got started in this? Or how did you get started in EOS, for that matter?
Oh, how I got started in crypto is actually, I think I came to your meetup, the one in Brooklyn, way back in I think January 2017 or something. That was actually, I don't know if you know, that was the first meetup I'd ever been to with crypto. I'd never even looked into crypto that much before.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that you were one of the people that came into crypto through there.
Yeah, so that's how I got into it. And I got into EOS via Everipedia. So I have my college classmate is the founder of Everipedia, one of the co-founders of Everipedia. And he was running a standard website, Everipedia, which was just like an online encyclopedia. That was a complement to Wikipedia. And I joined him when he decided to switch that over to blockchain. And we got into EOS by settling on EOS as the platform we were going to use, because we met Brock Pierce at a conference, and he convinced us. He told us, EOS is the future. This is going to be better than Ethereum. And he just, we went for the sales pitch. We thought it was like, okay, this sounds legit. We'll go for it. So we were the first major DApp on EOS. First way back in Block One did the EOS ICO in June of 2017, and we decided around August of 2017 to commit to EOS. So we were the first major DApp to commit to EOS, and for a while, I think at least 4 or 5 months, I don't think another DApp really committed to the platform. So we've been there from the start.
Yeah, no, I do remember. Yeah, definitely from the very beginning of EOS, Everipedia was always championed as being kind of like this great DApp that is on the blockchain. So you probably had instrumental in helping almost EOS get to where they are, or at least as fast as they did. I guess on a high level, what would be sort of the differentiating characteristics of Everipedia versus Wikipedia? Okay, so it's a Wikipedia on a blockchain, but what are some of the, I guess, advantages? And this is probably a question you answer all the time.
Yeah. The primary one is the philosophy behind how we curate the encyclopedia. Wikipedia's got a policy of what they call deletionism. I don't know if they call it, we call it that actually. They delete about 90% of content that shows up on Wikipedia. So their belief is only the top quality content that comes to their site every day should be included in Wikipedia. So because of that, they have about 6 to 7 million articles. And we think that number could be greater. It should be around 100 million or even 1 billion. So our philosophy is just inclusionism. So no matter who you are, you should have a page on our site. So I have an Everipedia page, but Wikipedia would never consider me important enough to have a Wikipedia page.
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe soon.
There you go.
I doubt it. Yeah. There's hundreds of people though. So I believe you have an Everipedia page.
Really?
I swear
I have never. Man, I should check that out. It's a good thing we're doing this this interview, because otherwise I'd never know.
You know what? No, okay, actually, you don't have one. We'll get you one made. So I'll hit you guys up. We'll get you one made today.
All right. Anyone else that wants one made, send a message to Kedar.
Yeah, just send it on over. We'll get you a page made.
So is there any restrictions at all? You
have to cite your sources, and the information you put in there has to be truthful and pass a voting. It has to go through a vote by the IQ community. So the other main distinction is that in Wikipedia, there's a central group of editors that determine whether content gets added to the encyclopedia or not.
Yeah.
In ours, that group is a decentralized group of token holders. So our token holders vote every time on whether a content gets added to the encyclopedia or not.
Gotcha. And do content creators earn tokens as well?
They do, yeah. They get rewards in order if their submission gets accepted into the network.
Right. Okay. So I guess that's also kind of like a big differentiating characteristic. Kind of like, in general, having a lot of apps move to a blockchain, which also in turn means that they've included some kind of tokenization or some kind of reward mechanism. So Steam has that too, where it was just kind of Reddit-like discussion forums, but now you have that within Everipedia. Is there any like stats on like who is sort of like the top earner in Everipedia? Have people actually made like serious money by just contributing a lot, or we're not really in that world yet?
We haven't turned up the rewards all the way to the maximum, so the number's a little bit lower, but there's a guy, Paul Bedson, who's made quite a bit of IQ, and he said he's made a substantial amount, like enough to be a side income. So there's probably one guy. I don't know if it would support multiple people with side incomes, but just this one guy it supports right now. Gotcha.
Okay. I mean, it's about, yeah. So I think that would be, another, if that, I mean, is it envisioned in the future that somebody who is, that a lot of, let's say, if you look at, let's say the top, 1,000 Wikipedia contributors, if those types of people, or, if Everipedia became as big as Wikipedia, and those people did the same kind of input, would they make enough to have like a side income? Is that the idea for it? Or not?
Yeah, I think in Europe or America, you'd be a side income, and if you were in Eastern, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, it might be even a primary income.
Right. So I don't know. I guess what is that? Maybe like 20,000 a year potentially somebody could make, or
right, 10 to 20K a year, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. All right, cool. So what's kind of next in store? What's coming up next for Everipedia?
Two major things we've got coming up. One is coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got a new front end releasing, and it's going to be a complete site. So the one we have right now is kind of a limited site that has all the content. There's no real good way to access all the content, no way to browse the content. That's going to be coming in this new update, along with just a whole bunch of new. It's just a brand new from scratch UI, a brand new from scratch smart contract. It's a recode of the entire system. We think it's going to be a lot better. With that, we're going to turn on a lot of marketing. We're going to be, putting a lot of advertising out there for the site, trying to get more users onto the site. And once we complete that, the next step we have planned is to, right now, you have to vote your own IQ in order to curate content. We're going to create a delegated system where you can delegate your IQ to a proxy, and that proxy splits any rewards that comes from voting 50-50 between the proxy and the user. So you could, in theory, not just theory, you could generate passive income. So I give my IQ to you, and you're like my proxy for voting, and you're an active person who uses the site constantly.
Gotcha.
And I get a little bit of money on the side as as my share.
How much is that a fixed amount? Like how much do you earn, let's say, per vote that you would do?
We're going to fix it at 50-50. The reason we're not making it dynamic.
You said a 50-50?
Oh yeah, split the rewards 50-50.
Right. So what is the what is the rewards? Like what are those numbers?
Yeah, I don't know. It matters, how active you would be on the site and stuff. The proxy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I thought there was like a particular reward, like per, let's say, vote that you participate in. You're saying with your IQ, if you're a voter, to determine whether or not a particular, let's say, article moves forward. Right
now there's a fixed reward of 500 IQ per 30 minutes. So mattering on the activity on the site, we vary the rewards.
Okay. And how much is an IQ? I'm just trying to.
An IQ right now is worth half a cent. So
Okay.
that's
All right. That's
$2.50 every 30 minutes. We can turn that number all the way up to about $20 every 30 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. We just haven't yet because we're worried about bots spamming the network.
Right, but I imagine also like that all those IQ rewards, I mean, they're coming from, I imagine there's this pool that you initially started with, or they're being generated over time, or how's the creation of IQ managed?
It's inflation right now. It's going to be inflation.
It's inflation, okay. Right, but you're saying, and that would mean like you would increase the inflation rate potentially if you're increasing the rewards.
Right. Currently, the inflation rate is 0.1%. If we turned it
up,
that's
to like, super low.
Yeah, if we could move it all the way up. So we were thinking about moving to 2%. That would, that would bring our rewards to $50 per every 30 minutes.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Very cool. All right, so well, we should all look out for that in a couple of weeks. You're saying the new site is going live. So
yep.
So that's 2 weeks crypto time turns into, but you've already accounted for that.
Well, yeah, it was supposed to release today. So.
Oh, really? Okay. So that's fair enough. Then we should assume in 2 weeks. Cool. So yeah, you're actually like a super busy man because you're like the main developer on Everipedia, but you're also involved with a number of other EOS projects. The other one, which I think is really interesting, is Decentral Bank, where you're trying to create a stable coin on EOS. So I assume this means it's a coin that's pegged at $1?
Yeah, pegged at $1. And actually, we're not trying to create it on EOS right now. We're thinking about launching our own blockchain to do it.
Oh man, I totally went right over. I just assumed you're just everything. How could you? Yeah. So
it's supposed to be. It's a blockchain specifically for algorithmic stablecoins. So we want even other people to release algorithmic stablecoins on this platform. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to launch all sorts of different experiments for stablecoins on this platform.
Gotcha. But don't you need then, isn't the easiest thing for making a stablecoin is when you already have like some other digital currency to peg it to? So like, let's say in the case of Ethereum where you have the maker DAI coin where it's pegged at $1, but currently it's able to achieve that achieve the ability of being marked 1-to-1 for $1 because you have these deposits of ether, right? So you already have something else of value, which can then be, it's almost like you're depositing instead of, you can't deposit gold into the blockchain to keep it stable or actual dollars, but you could deposit ether, which has some market value, which then, people would kind of either close out or modify those contracts in order to make sure that, yes, those, if you have $100 worth of ether in the smart contract, you can issue 100 of those coins. But then as the value, let's say the value of ether drops to 50, then presumably there's incentives so that 50 of those coins get destroyed. I'm simplifying the model here quite a bit, but that's generally how it works. So how would you do that without any other currency? We can swap in. We have IBC. We're going to build IBC into the platform, so we're going to swap in a bunch of different currencies. We're planning on swapping Ether into the chain. We're planning on swapping EOS into the chain. We're trying to get. So our goal is to build. Right now, there's the over collateralized coins that they have like 150 to 200% of the collateral required out there, but that's not how central banks operate. They have very small percentages of their. Like the Federal Reserve sheet holds a ton of gold. It holds like 5 or 6 different assets. So our idea is we want to mimic as close as possible a central bank, but do it with an algorithm. So we're going to print coins, even if we have $1 million in reserve, we're going to try and print 5 million of stable coin and see if we can use mechanisms that a typical central bank would use to keep the price afloat. Gotcha.
So we'll issue bonds on the network. We'll issue shares. We'll do all sorts of stuff to try and keep the price level.
Okay, but then at the end of the day, there is this like some element of, I guess people would say there's an element of centralization because then you are kind of holding those other assets, or is that your decentralized network?
The assets are going to be held on the chain in a system contract, and they're going to be manipulated by a series, the 21 block producers or whatever mining system we decide to set up. So one thing we're exploring right now is still like bolting proof of work onto the EOS IO chain, and then having the miners decide which direction. So the miners would signal which direction they want the contraction and expansion to go.
Gotcha. Okay, so then it is still tied or pegged in some way to the EOS blockchain, which would actually have those other assets or.
Yeah, in some ways. You saw Basis, right?
I remember Basis. Yeah, that was the one that was shut down, or they never were able to take off, right? Because the SEC was right. I guess I don't actually remember how they operated.
Okay, from what I heard, it seemed more of they just, I don't know if there was necessarily that the SEC wasn't allowing them. If that is the case, then it's very simple for us to just do this offshore where the SEC isn't a factor.
Yeah, it wasn't so much that the SEC maybe didn't allow it, but they wanted to get explicit approval from various government agencies and they weren't getting it. But you're right. I think there's been some other rumors that maybe they just, I don't know, couldn't pull it off for whatever reason.
Right. That's what I've heard a little bit, that they couldn't pull it off and they decided to just abandon the experiment. And our thought was, this seems like an experiment that should happen. I don't know why they abandoned it. So we're kind of taking it up from where they left off.
Gotcha.
So we are openly saying that we're going to do exactly what Basis did, and that we're going to try and add additional mechanisms in there to prevent any sort of, risk that might have existed in their system. And it's totally possible that it could fail. We want to give it a shot because for some reason, nobody is even trying the whole algorithmic stablecoin business. Everyone's sticking specifically to over-collateralized coins at the moment. So we're going to take a shot at it and see if it works.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that that's a problem because all the other ones are too over collateralized. I mean, I guess the argument would be like, since the crypto market fluctuates so wildly that you can have, let's say in the case of Ethereum, it did drop sort of like 90% at some point, but yet the maker DAI coin was still able to maintain its value at $1 or close to it.
Right.
So it kind of needed a lot of that buffer, but you're right. And maybe you can make the argument that maybe not necessarily.
Right. The Basis model said that you could print bonds. That's what their system was. They printed bonds in order to stabilize the price. We could even have a system where we print bonds, and instead of using the bonds to sell for stablecoin, we could sell the bonds for EOS or Ethereum to add collateralization to the system.
Gotcha.
So we're exploring mechanisms like that. I think there's some way where this is kind of possible, I think.
Gotcha. And what's the advantage for you to sort of build this out as a separate blockchain as opposed to just doing it directly on EOS?
We wanted to create an experimental platform for anybody that wants to issue their own algorithmic stablecoins as well. So we want to make it as easy as possible for anyone else to come in that wants to try different ideas. So we have a set of mechanisms we have in mind. If anybody has a different set of mechanisms in mind, we want them to be able to come onto our platform and do it easily.
Gotcha. And it wouldn't be so easy to just build those mechanisms directly into EOS, like within a EOS smart contract?
Yeah, we've looked into it. It's still something to think about. We think our own chain is the way to go because if something like proof of work is something we would never be able to do on EOS. And that's one of those things we've been thinking of. If you want to if you want to build a successful stable coin, do you want it to be like, the level of security should be sovereign proof. And is EOS sovereign proof? That's something that's kind of an open question still. So if we ever want to do something like proof of work, that's something we could never do on the EOS mainnet.
Well, you've said two things there, like that I'm not quite sure why they're conflated in the sense that do you feel proof of work is more sovereign proof than proof of stake?
Yeah, I do.
So you're just So you're just saying what can you spell that out? So you're saying it's harder for a government to shut down a proof of work chain, and to me, I would almost make the argument the other way around. Sorry to
good question. Yeah, so the EOS chain right now, this is something we were talking about earlier. 16 of the producers are in China at the moment. So if the Chinese government, so let's say an actual currency were issued on EOS, and that currency got big enough to threaten anybody.
Okay.
The Chinese government could go down right now and tell, they could take the chain down in a form of attack. They could coerce 16 producers to take the chain down. Is that actually possible? I don't know. But even psychologically, a lot of people seem to have issues with EOS, with the DPoS system. So even if it's just psychological, the difference, we think it might be worth putting proof of work into there. These are all just we're really in the early, planning stages of this right now. We haven't committed to any specific methodology on it.
And then, but wouldn't the same apply then, if you, in case of proof of work, then you actually have some kind of servers and mining facilities that presumably the government can just go in there. And there you also have something very physical. Like you can just lock the doors to the server rooms.
Yeah, you could say you're saying 51% of the hash power ended up in one.
Right. Yeah. So
no, that's fair.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Right. Unless there's some argument to make that for some reason it's easier for, the hash power initially to start off as a more distributed way than just being, in one country or another with proof of stake. But anyway, talking about block producers is a good segue into the other project that you're involved with, LibertyBlock. So you're also one of the block producers. I guess I'm not quite sure how to phrase that, but you are a block producer on EOS. You're at position. So EOS, you have 21 block producers, but you're not in that 21.
Yeah, we're number 42 right now.
You're 42, but those numbers going up and down constantly. I was told a couple of weeks ago on actually a previous webinar that we did that of the 21 block producers, only 2 or 3 of them have actually been in the 21 camp since the launch of EOS. So it seems like that's been fluctuating, quite like people are getting pushed down and up all the time.
We peaked at number 5. We were number 5 for 3 weeks, in around October or something.
So how do you explain that there's such wild movements in terms of, because this is people, they actually have to then unstake their coins or then I guess vote in. They have to take some actual active steps to vote in some other block producers, right? So people actually have to vote you in, and then at some point decide to vote someone else, vote someone else above you.
The majority of voting right now happens by proxy. So the exchanges are the biggest ones. Huobi and Bitfinex are the 2 largest proxies. And then beyond that, there's 5 or 6 others, individual proxies that control quite a significant amount of votes as well. So it's kind of like a Game of Thrones kind of thing where it's like, are you in favor with the major proxies at the moment? So when we went up to number 5, we had the votes of both the Huobi and the Bitfinex proxies at that point.
Gotcha.
At some point, we lost the vote of the Huobi proxy. When we lost the Huobi proxy, we dropped from 5 all the way down to 22.
Gotcha.
And this was over.
Anything you guys did at LibertyBlock that kind of won their favor and then lost their favor, or these things are kind of very arbitrary?
Partially arbitrary, partially so it's well known that LibertyBlock is affiliated with Everipedia, and Everipedia instituted a fee on their token around that time, and that upset a lot of people in the community. And the exchanges are monitoring community sentiment, so they want to make sure that whoever the community is in favor of at the moment is one of the top producers. So when they noticed that community sentiment was going against Everipedia for a little bit, they pulled the vote from us, I believe.
Wow.
But I've never confirmed that with anyone.
Right. So it does seem, though, that it's almost like the proxies then actually have more power than the block producers themselves, right? I mean, if they have such a significant sway, if you have, let's say, the top, I don't know, let's say 7 proxies, I mean, how much of the EOS market do they, total coin supply do they control?
I don't know what it's
I
at
don't expect
anymore.
you to know this number off the top of your head, but
Initially, it was quite a large amount. So initially around October and November, when I was talking about when we were at the top, at that point, Huobi and Diffnext were almost exclusively controlling the vote.
Gotcha.
I'd say almost like 60 to 70% of voting tokens were coming from them almost. Now the number's gone way down. Whales have pulled their money off the exchanges. Rex has been a big change for this.
Right.
Rex was in EOS, it gives people passive income now, but you have to control your own keys in order to do it. So a lot of whales have pulled their tokens off the exchanges and started voting on their own. So now I don't think it's as much controlled by the exchanges as it was earlier.
Okay.
Probably lower down towards 20, 30% now.
Gotcha. So, and just going back, so as a block producer, what are the, so being in position 42, is it that as long as you have 0.5% of the tokens or voted like towards you or delegated to you, then you get some reward? Is that right? Like what?
No, the calculation is your percentage of the vote times 0.75% of the inflation.
Right.
And if that number is greater than 100 EOS, then you get your reward.
I
so
see.
Any day where you pop over the 100 EOS threshold, you can claim rewards for that day.
Gotcha. So generally that would include like how many of those top block producers, like at what position is kind of the cutoff? Or that
we're at 42 and we pulled in 240 EOS yesterday. So I imagine that number is going all. I can look it up right now if you want.
Right. No, I was just curious, like if it's a top 80 or something, but I guess it would mean anyone that's even pulling in like half of, or
half our number of votes is getting
yeah.
rewards. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that threshold right now is about 35 million votes. 30 to 35 million votes is how many.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know the list. If that means you have like 100 block producers or so that are kind of still earning those rewards. And yeah, but if you're in the top 21, then you get a percentage of that other 0.25%. So the EOS has a 1% inflation. 0.75, you're saying gets divvied up among those block producers as long as you make that minimum cutoff of having enough votes to get 100 tokens per day, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
100 EOS per day, yeah.
Right. Gotcha. So, and then
the 0.25% is split evenly between the top 21 producers.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. Very cool. All right. Thanks for clearing that up. All right. So also like as part of LibertyBlock, what are some of the other, I know you have like a few other tools out there. One is like a smart contract gas estimator. And then you also have an airdrop price estimator. So I would actually love to talk to you about, because talking more about from the Ethereum world, like I have a very clear understanding of kind of what the gas costs are, but how do you break down the differences between what the fees are in EOS compared to say Ethereum? So both in terms of like general transactions and then when you're dealing with creating a smart contract.
In Ethereum, it's pretty straightforward, right? There's just gas and that's it.
Right.
In EOS, it's a little bit, there's three different costs that you have to account for. There's RAM, there's CPU, and there's net. Mm-hmm. The airdrop calculator calculates how much RAM you would need. So RAM is like it's system memory. And you need it to store any item in the database. But you also get it back when you sell it. So there was that huge RAM speculation market when EOS launched, because the RAM price is tied to what percentage of the RAM is being used on the network. Mm-hmm. CPU was really expensive around December, but Block One made a ton of changes to the WASM, the runtime that runs with EOS, and now EOS CPU is much cheaper. The CPU is just how much the milliseconds of times it takes to execute transactions. So you stake for EOS, you buy RAM, you stake for net. Network is how much bandwidth you consume. For now, like net is almost free. In all, for all regards, it's free.
Gotcha.
CPU, each EOS gets you about 300 milliseconds of CPU, 30 milliseconds of CPU at the moment. Mm-hmm. Each EOS you stake, and the average transaction takes about 1 millisecond.
Gotcha. So in EOS, like in general, if I'm just sending a regular transaction as a payment, that's a payment that would be a free. There's no, I'm not using any RAM. Well,
you're going to be using CPU. Transfer takes about 700 microseconds of CPU.
Okay.
So you would need about 0.1 EOS staked in order to be able to do that.
Okay, but then eventually, so it's just being staked, but then you can claim that back.
Exactly. When you unstake it, you lose access to that CPU.
Right. And then, but if I'm, let's say, executing let's say an operation or function on a smart contract on EOS, in that case, let's say I'm just calling something that stores, I don't know, a single integer with the, so
that would take you about, so a single integer is what, 8 bytes of RAM?
Right.
Right now, EOS, right now it's about 0.05 EOS per kilobyte of RAM. So that would cost you like 0.00.
Right. So you are paying the RAM. So there you actually are paying. So the RAM, that you pay for, you don't get that back.
You do get it back.
Too.
If you ever free that RAM up, so if you ever delete that entry from the database, then you can buy. So you buy and sell RAM in the market. And the value fluctuates.
I see. Okay, that's why there's a speculation market for it.
Right. So
okay,
you can sell the RAM.
sense.
So once I free it up, if I sell the RAM, I get my money back.
Okay. So in terms of, let's say, your airdrop calculator, what is it? So let's say if I want to do an airdrop to, I don't know, 5,000 addresses, so for each address, I'm just doing another, like a regular transaction. So that would just be
every address. So when you do an airdrop, the reason we calculate RAM is every time you send money to an account, you need to open up an entry in the database that stores your token's balance for that user.
Right. Gotcha.
So that's about 100 bytes of RAM or something, 100 or 200 bytes of RAM per user. So we're just calculating based on that.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. So hopefully, are there any airdrops, big ones that are coming up? Just like in general, not necessarily using your tool, but what are just
Block One's got a new Block One just bought. This happened a couple days ago or yesterday. Block One bought 3.3 million EOS worth of RAM, which is the largest RAM purchase that's ever happened on the chain.
Wow.
And we think they're about to launch it's almost an open secret that they're launching a new social network application.
Really?
And they're going to be hosting the RAM for that, it sounds like. So there's going to be huge. Hopefully there's a token associated with it is what I've heard. And there might be an airdrop for that token.
Okay, amazing. Wow. Okay, that is pretty huge. And I mean, I guess it is surprising that there isn't more news then about it. If it's a social network, that seems like a pretty massive project. But yeah,
June 1st is going to be the announcement.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the big the big event. Okay, we got 3 days to go.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah. All right, man. Yeah, it was really great talking to you about all this. I just want to see to our listeners out there, viewers, if you have any questions, now's your chance. If you want to pop those in there on this and on the side. Okay. Apparently, Brendan said no
airdrop today. Well, there you go.
Right. we'll keep waiting then.
Okay.
Yeah. So just want to remind all of you out there. So I'm Solomon from Blockmatics. Check out our website, blockmatics.io. We have a lot of courses on different platforms and apps in the blockchain space. You can sign up to our newsletter, which we put out every week about some item or some idea that's really very interesting in the blockchain space. And then we also do a lot of in-person classes in New York and across the United States. So if you're looking for that as well, come seek us out. And of course, follow us on all the social media platforms. Kedar, where should people turn to, I guess, follow what you're up to, or what shout out to you?
I hang out on Telegram a lot. That's about it.
All right.
So if you ever see me in the EOS chats and Telegram, say hello.
Right. And then I guess there's the Decentral Bank Telegram is pretty active. What is
the Everipedia Telegram is very active. Sorry, the Everipedia. Oh yeah, the Decentral Bank Telegram is very active. The Everipedia Twitter is pretty active. And LibertyBlock, we have a Telegram group as well, but it's not as active.
Gotcha. And those are pretty straightforward to find, I guess. I can
put in the link for the Decentral Bank one. That's the only one that's not. Easy to find.
Yeah, which reminds me, we have a in-person Ethereum developer course. I believe it is June 6th. I'll put in, well, yeah, I'm not sure if I got that date right, but I'll put in the link here on the site as well. So if anyone of you are in New York and want to learn about coding on Ethereum, hopefully we'll have an EOS one out as well too. And one last thing, I know you also mentioned that you're working on another project called Predict.
Right.
So
yeah.
You want to say a minute, what is Predict and what are you guys doing there?
Predict is going to be a prediction network on EOS. It's going to be, so Everipedia was the first DApp on the IQ network. Predict is going to be the second. And our idea is basically just to build Augur on EOS with a couple simplifications and a couple improvements. One of the main issues with Augur is one, that there's a bunch of scam networks, scam markets. And the reason for the scam markets is that you can go to a backstop resolution in Augur that goes to the rep token holders. And what everyone's kind of found out is that the rep token holders just really don't care. And they don't resolve these things properly. And you end up with just invalid markets popping up all the time. So what we've done is, I think Augur was I think one of the weaknesses of Augur was that they were obligated to have some sort of decentralized resolution system because they ICO'd this token. And we think getting rid of the token is a simpler way to do prediction markets. So we've actually swapped out the resolution system from a decentralized system to we give people, whoever creates the market can decide whatever resolution system they want to use. And we anticipate most people are going to go with some sort of like multi-sig resolution system. So 3 or 4 trusted members of the community or block producers, ideally in EOS, would end up resolving markets. That's how we think it's going to go. And there's a fee paid to resolvers. So there's an incentive for people to do good resolution. And your reputation is on the line. So if you're like LibertyBlock, there's no way we're going to resolve a market poorly. It would affect all sorts of things we do. We would lose our entire BP rewards. There's just too much money on the line for that.
That's true.
So, and our public image is also on the line. So we've decided to swap the resolution system out with that. That's one. And the second is that we're doing it on EOS, which is a far more usable system than Ethereum. So we think combined, it'll be much bigger than Augur. Like Augur doesn't have any real usage at the moment from what we see. And we think Predict will actually have real usage.
Awesome. So I guess as of now, there are no other projects that are talking about or trying to build a prediction market on EOS. This will be the first one.
No one's building it straight from the protocol level now.
Gotcha. And I did forget to ask, actually, with respect to the stablecoin, are there any other stablecoin projects on EOS currently?
Yeah, there's tons of stablecoin projects. I've seen hundreds. Every day I talk to a new one, it seems like.
Oh, I see. All right. Pardon my ignorance.
Yeah. On EOS specifically, I don't know if they want me to talk about it. So actually, I'm not going to say specifically who it is.
Okay.
I've talked to at least 4 groups that are working on a stablecoin on EOS, but I don't know whether they're public or not. So I don't want to bring their names up. Right.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So Adam here asked a couple of questions. If you want to take those on the side.
Do I think Predict will be bigger than Everipedia? In terms of scale, no, because Everipedia has got so much content. In terms of usage, possibly. I think Predict is going to be really big. Resolvers be required to stake IQ. No, the only use of IQ in this system is that market creators have to burn IQ in order to create a market. So it's kind of a fee for listing. Users of the system won't have to use IQ. They can bet in EOS, and eventually they'll be able to bet using stablecoins as well. And yeah, resolvers don't need to use IQ either. Only the market creator is obligated to find IQ. Can the bet hosts pool IQ as a team? I don't know what that means.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time anyway, so we can always come back and answer that too. All right. Thanks a lot, man. This was really interesting. I learned a lot, and that's what matters. No, and our audience, I'm sure, has as well. Cool. Until next time.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Good luck with all your projects. Bye.
Thanks.